Eric Wood, former Pro Bowl center for the Bills and Bills radio analyst. Eric, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So down here in Jacksonville, we say, well, the Jaguars have the Bills number. And I know up there in Buffalo, the Bills fans say, well, we have the Dolphins number. You played for a team. Does it really work like that?
I mean, it can based upon matchups. I would say the team that had our number when I was playing for the Bills were the New England Patriots, but they had almost everybody's number, and they weren't losing a whole lot of games each year. When you look at the Dolphins, we play them twice a year, and they've been dominant against the Dolphins ever since Sean McDermott took over and Josh Allen's been the quarterback. And so, that one's got a lot more games in a row. But I've seen it, and you look at the last game in London, the Jaguars beat the Bills pretty handily, and then pulled off a pretty big upset the year before down in Jacksonville, that 9-6 win. And so, yeah, there's some people out there that would say that the Jaguars have had the Bills number as of late.
Hey, Eric, Mia O'Brien here. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's stay on that big picture topic. What do you think is the perception of the Jacksonville Jaguars, not just by Bills fans, but by the Buffalo Bills themselves?
Yeah, I would say, probably similar to everyone else that's around the league right now, thinking that this, when you look at it talent-wise, shouldn't be an 0-2 football team. And I know they've had two close games, and, that first one against the Dolphins, they're a fumble near the end zone away from probably running away with that one. And so, they're sitting at 0-2, but they're probably a lot better than their record indicates. Now, Jaguars didn't finish the season strong last year, and they're starting off slow this year. So at some point, you expect it to turn around, though.
Eric, one of the things that the Bills did last year is making that move in the middle of the year when they fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. After that, it really felt like the offense immediately kind of shifted into what you expected that offense to look like, and now it looks like it's bleeding into this year. Anything from Josh Allen's turnovers decreased last year, and that's something people had their eye on a lot. But what has Joe Brady been able to do for this offensive scheme and for Josh Allen, and what does that indicate for teams maybe making those mid-season moves when things just aren't working offensively?
Yeah, I think Joe Brady, when you look at it, he's simplified some of the passing game, given Josh some easier throws. The start of the Dolphins game last week, a couple of quick hitters to Dalton Kincaid to allow Josh to get in a rhythm and not, just make him force the ball down the field over and over and try and make those Superman plays that you often see from him. Yes, he's got that in his game, but then you give him some easier throws throughout. And then he's also been able to implement and stay consistent calling the run game, which was strong at the end of last season and has started this season off strong, which simply just takes a lot of pressure off a quarterback and off of a team when you're able to run the ball effectively. And, not all midseason switches at a coordinator or a head coach or whatever it may be works out as well as it has with this one. But the Bills saw something in Joe Brady, and it's paying off now.
Eric, as far as the offseason losses, Mitch Morse, Gabe Davis obviously here, but obviously also Stephon Diggs to the Texans. Did you think that the Bills would start 2-0 with all of that?
I did. But, the Bills had more unknowns heading into this season than we've had in a while. They've also been bitten by the injury bug, especially at the linebacker position, and then all-pro cornerback nickel, Taron Johnson's out for this game. But, I expected them to start off fast. They finished the last season very strong in the regular season, fall just short at home against Kansas City, who ends up winning the Super Bowl. So I expected them to have a good start to this year, and they've looked pretty sharp through 2 weeks.
Eric Wood, former Pro Bowl center for the Bills, now a part of the Bills radio network, joining us on the Garber Auto Mall hotline. Eric, let's go back to last year's meeting, because I think this would be front of mind for Joe Brady. The Bills ran for just 29 total yards against the Jaguars. James Cook had -4 yards on 5 carries. Obviously, maybe this was the beginning for Sean McDermott of saying, maybe I need to get, somebody in here who's a little bit more apt to run the ball and to call running plays, which I'm sure as a former offensive lineman, that is music to your ears. But how much can you look back at what that Bills team was in the 2023 meeting and maybe take things from it and say this is where they have to be different in this year's meeting?
Yeah, you could say that the Bills came out flat in that game in London, but I've been a part of teams before where they say we came out flat and simply the other team executing better and dominating you, and that's what happened in London. And James Cook got benched for a part of that game after a fumble, I believe, which led to some limited carries for him. Ended up having a Pro Bowl season, ended up playing excellent, for the remainder of the year, but did not have a good game that game, and a lot of that goes on the guys up front. And the Bills had injuries to their nose guard and Matt Milano early in that game against the Jaguars, and the offense just it was almost a opposite with the Jaguars. They were able to just run the football down the Bills' throat throughout that game. So I'm sure Sean McDermott will be using a lot of that as motivation here in this upcoming matchup.
One of the biggest questions here right now, Eric, is the offensive line. There's been a lot of struggles up there this first couple games and even towards the end of last season. And when you look at the Bills line, 3 of their offensive linemen, of their starting offensive linemen, the Bills have drafted. They obviously added Connor McGovern last year to kind of bulk up that line. But what are your thoughts on the building process for the Buffalo line and how that's kind of led to this offense being able to do what they've done most recently?
Yeah, the offensive line's played excellent to start this year. Deion Dawkins, already a handsomely rewarded left tackle, and then Spencer Brown just became one of the highest paid right tackles in all of football just prior to the season when he signed his contract extension. They really like their young guard and Osiris Torrance. Connor McGovern obviously sliding into the pivot for Mitch Morse, and then David Edwards played a decent amount for the Bills last season. He slides in a left guard. So they love what they have up front, and these guys, it's their, I believe, 3rd year with Aaron Cromer as the offensive line coach. So they've had some stability there, and they really like their unit up front. And, when you look at this Jacksonville offensive line on paper, you would say this is a star-studded, high draft picks, high free agents that they've brought in, if you include Mitch Morse into that list. And so you expect them, maybe as time goes on, they have more time to gel, that this is going to be a stronger unit because on paper, it looks like it should be one of the better in the league.
Eric, several years ago, the Bills came down to Jacksonville for a playoff game, and I think most people in Northeast Florida for the first time were introduced to Bills Mafia. How would you describe the fan base up there?
Yeah, that's actually my final game. They found out after that game I had a career-ending neck injury, so that was my final game was losing down there in Jacksonville. I would say for the most part, the Bills are a very passionate fan base. They like to have fun. They love their Bills. They're also very philanthropic. They support a number of charities across the country through their, community of Bills Mafia. And I'll say this, for those coming from Jacksonville that are going to attend the game, you may not be welcomed with a hug, but it's a pretty friendly environment. I'd feel more comfortable walking into the Bills Stadium, with a Jaguars jersey or shirt on than a lot of other stadiums, maybe both the ones in Philadelphia, maybe the stadium in New York. You'll have a much better, reception from Bills fan than you will at a number of other NFL stadiums.
That's good to know, Eric, because I think like half of our sales staff has some sort of connection up there, whether it's a brother or a cousin or a friend. And so a bunch of them are going up there. And in a meeting yesterday, they were saying to me like how nervous they were to go into Orchard Park and you don't just walk into Highmark Stadium. And as someone who attended Ithaca College, I'm like, I don't know. The people of Central and Western New York are very nice. They take the Bills very seriously, but I digress. Real quick before we let you go, Mitch Morse, Gabe Davis, 2 guys who I'm sure you are very familiar with. Explain to me what those 2 guys can bring to Jacksonville and why they may just be why you may believe that they're just scratching the surface right now.
Yeah, I think Mitch in particular is one of the more athletic centers in the league, even getting up there in age a little bit. He's extremely athletic, was a great leader. That's the guy that Josh Allen had snapping to him, and really kind of it was a big part of the mentorship of Josh Allen was having a veteran center in front of him. And then Gabe Davis is a selfless player, can make big plays. He's reliable. He's the type of guy in Buffalo, he'd win the offseason strength and conditioning award. He's a guy that unfortunately the Bills were up against the salary cap heading into this offseason and weren't able to get a deal done with him. Jacksonville benefits because of it.
Eric, final one for me, and then we'll let you go. But when the Bills are looking at the Jags defense, what do you think their primary focus will be on? Stopping that pass rush with guys like obviously Josh Hines, Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead added in the middle, or maybe taking advantage of a secondary that's pretty beat up right now?
Yeah, I think you got to, try and attack matchups that you think you have advantages with, and whether that's a banged-up secondary, okay, well, now you have to make sure that you're getting the ball up in time, or else, you're letting these defensive linemen tee off on you. This, for the past couple of years has been a pretty strong run defense in Jacksonville, so it'll kind of be strength on strength when the Bills do decide to run the ball in this game. But, you have a desperate Jacksonville team coming up to Buffalo. I've been on teams that have started 0-2 before, and you're doing anything you can not to get that third loss, because you start sitting at 0-3, and in the back of your mind you're saying towards the end of the season we might be playing meaningless football games. So the Bills know they're in for a dogfight this week.
Well, Eric, we appreciate your time, and sorry that Jacksonville didn't treat you so well back then.
Yeah, it's all good. I actually, my first game in Jacksonville in 2009, I did the Joe Theismann leg break, so that stadium gives me some nightmares.
I can only imagine. Well, we really appreciate it, and have fun Monday night.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric Wood, former Pro Bowl center for the Bills. He also hosts a podcast centered on Buffalo. Really, at the end of the day, it always comes down to matchups. Yeah. And one of the key pieces for the Jaguars as far as creating matchup nightmares for their teams is Evan Ingram. And we don't know at this point because of the hamstring injury he suffered before the game this past Sunday against the Browns. We don't know. We won't know until tomorrow if he's going to be able to play.
But also you couple that on the other side, and the Bills know they're without Teron Johnson already. Mm-hmm. They know they're probably without. I think that Matt Milano's already ruled out. And that linebacking core is beat up. Yeah. And while certainly their younger guys stepped up against the Dolphins, if the Jags are as physical as they say they want to be,
which we haven't seen.
We haven't seen.
We saw it in the first half of the first week.
But, it's an opportunity. If nothing else, on paper, it's an opportunity.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.